While there are many great animation studios out there, the one with the most consistent rap sheet has to be Pixar. Yes, there are a few movies that are whatever, and some that are bad, but you can't deny that they made some bangers. The bad movies from Pixar are still better than the bad movies from Disney or even DreamWorks. I've always held Pixar in a high regard, so let's see if it proves that I'm not a crazy person.
You got a friend in me.
Pixar's first movie was Toy Story. It's about toys that come to life, but you already knew that. Most of Pixar's movies are classics, so you've probably seen most of them. Toy Story had a lot stacked against it. It was the first fully CGI feature film, the first movie from this studio, and that's about it. It was very ambitious, so I don't think people would be disappointed if it didn't do that great. But quite the opposite happened. This movie blew up and was very popular, and you can see why. It's a fantastic movie that nails so much. For starters, the voice talent attached to the film is legendary, with some excellent performances. Tom Hanks and Tim Allen really sell their parts and commit 110%.
You are a toy!
You are a sad, strange little man, and you have my pity. Farewell.
And even with their screen time, the side characters are really likable thanks to their voices. And how did they make this porcelain person pretty perfect? Woody and Buzz are obviously the standouts because they both have really compelling character arcs. Woody feels very threatened as Buzz takes his favorite toy position and hates Buzz for it. He comes to accept that he just isn't as cool as Buzz, but still vows to stand by Andy anyway. On the flip side, Buzz comes to accept that he's a toy instead of a space ranger and finds a new purpose in bringing joy to Andy. But both are done a little bit differently, so it doesn't feel repetitive. They both also have awesome scenes where they just crash out. I can't believe how well the CGI has held up after 30 years. But the people in this movie do not. Look how scary they are! Since it's animated, of course it's gonna be a hit with the kids. But there is a shocking amount of jokes just for adults. There isn't just one or two. No, the whole movie is filled with them. Actually, the script as a whole is very mature, never feeling dumbed down or anything. The theme of questioning your own existence is very hard-hitting for a kids movie, but they do it in a way that'll help children understand. The pacing is very nice as well, and the movie is kind of split structure-wise. The first half is set in Andy's room, then the second half is set in Sid's room. Then leading to the final chase was the cherry on top. I think one of the most important parts of the movie is the score, because scenes just wouldn't land as well. But luckily, we have Randy Newman, who brings some classic bops. What else do you want me to say? It's Toy Story, man. A movie with surprisingly great character work, and jokes that make me laugh out loud. I've definitely seen A Bug's Life before making this video, but I always forget what happens in it. But there's a reason for this. I just think it's a forgettable movie. Anytime I mention something being forgettable, I feel like I have to preference that this isn't a bad movie. It's actually really solid. You'll have a fun time while watching, but in my experience, I'll forget about it shortly after. I think this is due to its premise being kind of normal. Most other Pixar movies have some mystical element afoot, like talking toys, emotions operating someone, or working class monsters. This movie is just ants. They use the bug idea to its fullest, I think, but in terms of standing out, this film misses the mark. I really sound like a hater, but this is an okay movie. My absolute favorite part is Hopper, who is a very intimidating villain. He carries so much aura with him, and the way they shoot him from the ants' POV makes him seem even more imposing as he towers over them. Hopper is actually worried that the ants will realize that they outnumber the grasshoppers, and uses their fear of him to keep him in line. I really like this angle. I don't want to give Kevin Spacey any praise because of all his SA allegations, but his voice fits Hopper so well. Hopper does get his just dues at the end, and he's eaten by birds. And as you'll soon see, this is one of many times Pixar characters will die. The whole ending was actually very well done. After the ants' bird plan doesn't go to plan, they find the strength to take on the grasshoppers themselves. And just as you think Hopper is done for, the rain starts, which has been teased throughout the whole movie. Since everything is from a bug's point of view, things we don't find scary like birds and rain seem terrifying. Good stuff, movie. Sadly, I can't really praise the movie for anything else, besides the animation, but all these movies are animated wonderfully. All the characters do the job, but they feel a little empty at points. I don't really care for Flick that much, and the whole journey to find other bugs wasn't explored as much as I would have liked. Flick goes out to find bugs who could help fight the grasshoppers, but he accidentally recruits circus bugs, but makes them work. All this is fine, but it's the journey itself. The start of the movie's pacing goes like this. Flick is set up as a fuck-up. The grasshoppers show up. Flick goes to find some bugs to help fight. We are introduced to new bugs. Flick recruits them. They make it back to the anthill, all in 30 minutes. More time spent searching for these bugs, or even some scenes of their travels home would have been nice because all of it goes so quick. The rest of the movie is the ants building a big bird, and the circus people warming up to the ants, which is nice. I complain about the journey part not being long enough, but there aren't any scenes throughout the film that don't add anything. What movie were we talking about again? Wouldn't it be hilarious if Toy Story 2 was one of the best sequels in cinema history? Well, it is, and honestly, I have nothing bad to say about it. Somehow they improve everything the original had to offer, and that was already a super great movie. The toys must set out into the world to rescue Woody from a collector who wants to put him in a museum. I love that they touch on this other aspect that toys are involved in, collecting. It's completely different from exploring the good and bad ways to play with toys, but it doesn't feel outlandish in this world. While Woody's in Al's apartment, he learns about his legacy and grows closer with these new characters. Woody being merchandise for this show is a genius way to world build, and makes a lot of sense considering how often that happens nowadays. And Jesse, Bullseye, and Pete connecting to Woody through the show is so big brain. And better yet, each of these guys are great characters in general. Jessie once had an owner who abandoned her when she got too old, setting up her fear of being forgotten. Stinky Pete is a superb twist villain, who won't let this big opportunity slip away from him, since he was never bought over the other toys. And Bullseye is just horse. Bravo, Toy Story 2, bravo. The big journey the other characters go on to find Woody is also really entertaining to watch. It gives Buzz a lot to do, as he comes face to face with another Buzz, who acts how he did in the first movie, which is very cute. Rex, Ham, Potato Head, and Slinky get a lot more screen time. And while they don't get any great character improvements or anything, they are still really entertaining side characters. The A and B plots are balanced so well that you never think that these scenes are going on for too long. This helps the pacing of the film a lot. The amount of scenes that take full advantage of these characters being toys is outstanding. The toy store moments were great. Woody rescuing Jessie from the plane was so intense. And did anyone else think that the cleaning scene was really satisfying? There's just something about it that makes me feel tingly. Just like A Bug's Life, after Stinky Pete is taken care of, you expect the movie just to conclude. But Jessie had to get stuck in the case and end up on a plane. How selfish. This final scene was the perfect ending to this movie, because it was so epic. And how the hell can Bullseye keep up with a massive plane? I'm just extremely glad this movie didn't just rehash what the last movie was, because they tackle a new, kind of existential topic. What should a toy do when their owner grows too old for their toys? Would you rather be locked away in a glass case for a bunch of strangers to look at? Or would you rather ride out those last moments with that kid? I think that's a really thought-provoking concept, and Woody flip-flops on that idea for the whole movie. I love this movie, it's a 10 out of 10, but it won't be a while until we see these characters again. I don't have much to say about Monsters Incorporated because I just think it's alright. It's at least better than A Bug's Life because the premise of the movie is kind of nifty. The monster world feels very lived in, and the city being powered by children's screams is a cool idea. Sully and Mike are a great duo, but neither of them had much of a character arc. I do think a character can still be good without one, but when there isn't else much going on, it makes these guys feel very shallow. So a kid slips into the monster world, and Mike and Sully have to get her back, while overcoming obstacles in their way. Again, this is fine and all, but it feels very simple and straightforward. I think this movie lacks the sauce that other Pixar movies have, because everything about this movie feels so surface level. Even the villains! Randall is the obvious mischievous guy, and there isn't else much to him. And Waternoose runs the Monsters Incorporated company, so of course he's the twist villain. I wouldn't even say it's a twist villain, because the evil businessman is one of the most reused cliches in all of fiction. Oh, you're telling me his company's in crisis? And he said he'd do anything to fix it? What could that mean? He's not fully a mustache-twirling villain, because he does feel bad for banishing Sully, but he's still whatever. That final chase was awesome though. Wow, 3 movies back to back with great chase scenes, who would have thought? I sadly remember this one being better than how I feel about it now. But it's Pixar. It's still a great movie, and I can't really hate that much on it. Finding Nemo could have easily been another Bug's Life situation, where the movie's just forgettable. Because they're just fish. Luckily there's so much to like about this movie, and it squashed any problem I could have had with it. For starters, there isn't a villain, which is kind of shocking to me. The plot didn't really call for one, as it's about this massive journey across the ocean, but it would have been so easy to cram one in. I don't think we can say that Darla or the dentist are one, because they are doing their own thing without any malice. There's an idea, more implied, that a lot of the fish aren't bad people, but just fall victim to their nature. Like Bruce. He's a great white shark who doesn't want to eat fish, but almost falls off the wagon.
Dory, are you okay? Oh, that's good.
It's this grey area I really like in characters. The main characters we follow are also pretty well written. Nemo is a very outgoing and brave child. Dory is a forgetful idiot, and Marlin is a paranoid and overprotective dad, who you'd think would be really annoying, but has every right to be this way. Bro's girl and 399 kids were eaten by a barracuda, so of course he's gonna be worried about losing his only son. How come so many Pixar characters die? It's from spending so much time with Dory, and being proven that his way of thinking isn't right, that Marlin starts to return to the fun-loving, goofy version of himself we saw at the start. It's a very simple but really effective character arc. The journey Marlin and Dory go on really highlights how beautiful and terrifying the ocean can be. I'm serious too. While there's so many gorgeous visuals, with music that puts you in a trance, you get scenes like this. And this. And this. This can and probably has given children nightmares. While Marlin and Dory are swimming through the entire ocean, Nemo is stuck in a fish tank, but must escape before he gets given to Satan. While there isn't as much to this B-plot, it's still really fun to witness, because of the other characters in the tank. I have heard too many cases where women have said Gil is hot. I will say that Gil is a very neat character, and can relate to Nemo as both of them have weird fins, and he goes out of his way to confront and even protect the little guy. The other fish could have had more going for them, but they are okay just being there. Even though I've said Dory is a lovable idiot, I really meant the idiot part. I get that because of her short-term memory loss, she is written to be kind of annoying, but they really stretch that idea for all it's worth. There is not enough redeeming qualities to make me like Dory all that much, because the scales are tipping too much in the direction of her being obnoxious. I know she gets more to her character in the sequel, but this isn't the sequel, so she's just annoying. This is definitely just a shit opinion I have, but I know a lot of people like Dory, so good for you. The Incredibles feels so weird when you remember it's a Pixar movie, a superhero movie. I know I made a point in my Big Hero 6 video that I thought it was odd for Disney to make a superhero film, and went on to say it seemed more like a Pixar thing. What I failed to realize is that it's still kind of weird. At least The Incredibles does something a bit different in the genre. Instead of seeing a complete origin story for a character, we witness the second rise of Bob and Helen as they come out of superhero retirement. They had been domesticated for 15 years since superheroes started getting sued, which makes this world feel really real, like something the boys would do. Why the hell did I say that in the script? I'm keeping it in. We do see Violet and Dash come into the family business, but they've already had their powers since before the film, so we don't waste time with them figuring out their powers. When the family all fights together, it feels epic, since throughout the film, they've all been pretty separate from each other. All of them are pretty fleshed out as characters, but Bob is such an underrated Pixar character. Since he's not a talking bug or a one-eyed monster, we can relate to Bob a lot more, even though we can't do this. He misses his life as Mr. Incredible, and finds his life now to be boring and unfulfilling. You can really see how this affects him, as Bob has some of the best crash-out scenes in cinema. When he gets the opportunity to be Mr. Incredible again, he jumps to it. He's a very charismatic guy, but acts completely different when there's nothing to do with superheroing. Look at how his expression changes when talking about Dash's powers. You think Bob's character arc would end with him realizing that he shouldn't be superheroing and appreciate the life he has now? Nah, his actions are proven right by the end, as the whole family returns to the superhero lifestyle. The whole not telling his wife what he was doing part wasn't cool, but it's strange how in the right he was the whole time. I wish I could say this movie was perfect, but the runtime's just too long for me. There are some moments that could have gotten to the point a bit quicker, and some scenes that could have been removed. It was the stuff before Bob got back in action. I get why it was essential for the plot and the characters, but let me see Big Chungus go! The action does go pretty crazy. The final showdown with the Omni Droid had such a large scale that involved all the characters well, which was nice, but I wish we had a more satisfying end to Syndrome. Bro did die. Add him to the list. But I would have liked to see Bob give him the treatment his boss got, because Buddy was a little shit who turned into a decent villain. Bro was shunned by his hero, then got rid of most of the superheroes. Wanted to pretend to be a hero so he could get the recognition he thinks he deserves, and sell his gadgets so everyone can be super, like he said.
And when everyone's super, no one will be.
What a hard line. Another Pixar banger, but what's weird is that I don't think I'd watch this movie over a lot of the later movies. It's weird because this is a very good movie. Great. Perfect almost. But I don't know, I just don't have the drive to rewatch it. I can tell you now, it's gonna get controversial where I rank this. Cars is hands down the best looking Pixar movie so far. Cars follows Lightning McQueen, our cocky race car, as he gets stuck in a country town. He learns to take life slow and appreciate the world around him, while also growing closer to the townspeople. This sounds interesting, and it is, but I think McQueen's development is so predictable and basic. I'm not saying it's done poorly or unsatisfying, but you know exactly where it is going as soon as you meet him. But as I said, he is done pretty well, as he loses his selfish traits throughout the runtime, and makes meaningful connections. His arc is wrapped up nicely, as he gives up on winning the big race that was hyped up, just so he could give another character the chance to finish his last race. McQueen's scenes with Mater and Sally are the best in the film, but he can't have a good bonding scene with everyone. That's when we get a montage of McQueen visiting everyone's business, and is capped off with this stunning scene. Since there's so much time spent in Radiator Springs, it feels realistic that everyone would start warming up to the person who destroyed their road, and was an asshole to them. I sadly do think that a lot of these side characters just feel too much like NPCs for McQueen to interact with. You could say that about every side character in these movies, but this one sticks out to me. Thankfully, characters like Sally, Doc, and Mater are given enough time to stand out. Both Doc and Sally give us some backstory, and Mater is just goofy and fun. He definitely could have become what Dory was to me. Infuriating. But he has some funny lines and genuine moments that make me like him.
I knew it. I knowed I made a good choice.
And what?
My best friend.
The location of Radiator Springs is such a vibe, and I really love the rundown aesthetic. The flashback showing the town in its glory years, juxtaposed by how it is now, is pretty upsetting. We do explore a lot of the places surrounding the town, like Willie's Butte, a field of tractors, and an abandoned inn accompanied by a waterfall. What Pixar is really good at is making these worlds feel so real that you actually want to visit these places. Cars is also the first Pixar film to use licensed songs, and they add a lot to the scenes they're in. I love Randy Newman's music, but nothing will beat Shaboom playing over this scene. The soundtrack is goated, and so is the moment in the credits where they recreate scenes from past movies. They got the voice actors to re-record altered lines, which is so unnecessary but funny at the same time. I wish I could like Ratatouille more. Is it bad? No. Is it perfect? No. Does it have rats in it? Absolutely. I find it hard to explain why I don't care for this movie. Maybe because I don't find the idea that interesting. It doesn't really grip me like the other movies have. And I think it's because everything is kind of bland. I don't like any of the human characters. Even Linguini, who is the main character. He doesn't have any character development. Or at least not a lot. Or at least not a lot that I noticed. And that's due to his scenes going by very quickly. He's very one note, just like every other character. Abusive girlfriend is way over the top, and that is what she's accredited as on Google. The villain, who I can't remember the name of, just wants to sabotage Remy and Linguini for taking the restaurant away from him. Boring! The rat characters aren't any better either. Remy's brother is fat, his father disapproves of his cooking lifestyle, and that's all the prominent rats. There's nothing else to these guys. The only character who has something going on is Remy. But again, I don't care for him. He wants to be chef. Okay, give him an arc or something. Since he has to control Linguini, why not have Remy learn to let go of control? Literally anything else, please. Remy is also telling the story, so there's sections where he narrates parts, but he only does this a few times. And when he starts again, you get kind of taken out of it. Either commit or don't. I've been praising the other movies for taking the time to craft these massive worlds, but we're pretty much only confined to the kitchen, which does make sense, but the setting feels repetitive and claustrophobic. It's set in Paris. Have a few more scenes of Linguini, an abusive girlfriend, going on a date to, like, the Eiffel Tower. The only things I can say I like is that the music is once again really nice on the ears. And having two different creatures as leads is a nice break from what we've gotten lately. You probably think I hate this movie, but no, it's still a solid overall movie. It's just really basic. This is peak. How do we go from a movie I don't really care for to this masterpiece of a film? WALL-E is my favourite Pixar movie because it oozes charm out of every orifice. It's about a robot who goes on a grand space adventure to rescue another robot that he wants to bang. WALL-E has more riz than I or you ever will. It's such a cute little story that then evolves into trying to save the Earth with the plant. Earth has become completely decimated by B&L, and it creates this super eerie atmosphere that I really like. It's almost haunting, but at least WALL-E is still there to make things a little chirpier. He's a really goofy and charming character, and is one of Pixar's best. He only speaks a few words throughout the film, but he doesn't really need them since he's already super expressive. You understand everything he does, and that's really commendable by the filmmakers. My boy gets absolutely tortured in this movie, which is hard to watch. Our other main robot is Eve, who is a little less interesting than the big man, but still really expressive in her words. It's nice to see these two grow closer and eventually fall in love. And this is what Pixar is all about. Robot sex! Another character who I thought would be more important was Mo, but he only shows up a few times and then joins Wall-E's gang. But I wish we saw more of him, because I genuinely don't know why he joined them. Forget them, we have overweight people to follow. The captain is another fantastic character, and he's not even that deep. He'll do anything to get his passengers home after finding out about Earth, and I just love him for that. I really enjoy the scene of him standing up to Otto, and he gives us this hard line.
I don't want to survive! I want to live!
Otto is the antagonist of the film, being ordered to never return to Earth. I like his deadpan delivery of his lines, but I'm disappointed that there wasn't more to him.
Captain.
I get he's just doing what he was programmed to do, but is that not kind of boring? This is another film that has an unbeatable vibe of wonder. This is another awesome looking film with some amazing shots. It just captures that feeling of awe. And the music, oh, the music! It follows Cars' lead with using an original score mixed with licensed songs, which is always implemented into the movie itself. Most of the time, we hear the songs through WALL-E's little recording device. A creative choice that I approve of is mixing real people into CGI movies. This somehow doesn't feel out of place or weird, because they are always depicted on a screen. I can't believe Pixar or anyone else doesn't capitalize more on this. This is my favorite Pixar movie. I can't really explain why it's so good in my head, but just go watch it. I 100% think I like this better than Toy Story 2, because this one's just more rewatchable.
Captain, give me the plan, give me the plan.
Is there nothing he cannot do?
I wasn't sure if I'd enjoy Up as much as I did when I was younger, because I didn't really get it. I was much younger then, but now, a few tears rolled down my eyes. This is the story of an old man with a dead wife going on an adventure with a younger boy, a talking dog, and Kevin. This is such a crazy squad of characters, and I like them all. Carl uses his house to fly to Paradise Falls, and I think the flying house is one of the most iconic Pixar things ever, and the symbolism behind it makes it so. This was the house Carl met Ellie, and it's where they spent their life together. After she passed, Carl became very defensive over it, refusing to let it be taken away. He thinks of Ellie when he sees it, even to the point where he refers to it as her. After a lot of close calls, Carl gets the house to Paradise Falls, which was Ellie's dream. He decides to bid farewell to the house after reading what was probably Ellie's last act, telling him to go on another adventure. We don't see much of Ellie, and I think that's a genius choice, since we only hear about her through Carl, which makes her feel like this mystical being, and that's probably what Carl saw her as. What I'm getting at here is that this movie's main theme is moving on after the death of a loved one, and I think that's beautiful. Carl found himself stuck after Ellie's death, as the world moved on without him. That's until he finds someone new to care for in Russell. These two have a great bond that is built over the course of the film, and it's just so wholesome. It's all the stuff Pixar is good at. They are somehow able to craft these excellent worlds with awesome characters, with each having an emotional core that makes you think about the themes. I don't have much to bitch about because everything it does is perfection. Next movie before I start crying again. This movie came out 11 years after the last one? Wow! Toy Story 3 gives all the characters we know and love a super satisfying ending that only gets better the more you watch it. The toys find themselves stuck in a preschool, getting tortured by stupid little kids. Well, Tom, why aren't they at a daycare? Well, Andy is all grown up now. And after a misunderstanding, the toys choose to leave as Andy doesn't play with them anymore. I have a problem with this decision as Andy was going to put them in the attic, but his mum thought they were trash, so put them on the curb. The toys interpret this as Andy throwing them out. But Woody saw the whole thing unfold. He tries to tell them the mistake, but they don't believe him at all. Why? Just why? They have literally no reason to doubt him. And it's not like they're being blinded by anger at Andy or anything. When they find out what happened, they are shocked. Woody is taken to daycare with them by accident, but is so stubborn in making sure he gets back to Andy, instead of at least considering the idea of staying. He wants to be played with too, and he knows if he goes back to Andy, that he'll never be played with again. Why do I care so much about the thoughts of these pieces of plastic? This whole argument just makes all these toys seem out of character. I really like this setting of the daycare, as it shows us yet another side of the toys world. But it acting as a prison as well was awesome. It's so creative, and there's even a prison break scene with all the characters working together. It's all ran by Lotso, who is a pretty bad villain, I think. I'm pretty sure they were trying to hide that he was evil, so there could be a twist. But as soon as you meet him, you know he's the bad guy. What I think would have been genius would be to have Ken be the main villain. Hear me out. Everyone teases Ken for being a girl's toy. So what if he climbed the ranks of this hierarchy and became the boss? But he was so small compared to everyone else. He had Lotso act as the boss. Have Lotso be his friendly self, then reveal he's evil as a red herring. But Ken would be pulling the strings behind the scenes. What we have now is just underwhelming. They try to give Lotso a sad backstory about him being replaced, but that also doesn't feel satisfying. What if he had an owner who grew up and kept him around for years without being played with? Lotso could act as a preview into what Woody would have become if he went to college with Andy, and would help him choose to stay with his friends. There are a lot of great scenes, like the opening playing scenario, reintroducing us all to the characters. The tense final act with the characters accepting their fate at the hands of a dump, and Andy giving away his toys to Bonnie. This was a great way to say goodbye to Andy and pass the torch. We don't spend much time with Bonnie or the toys she already has, but there wasn't much going on with them. A character I didn't expect to have a lot going on was Buzz. He gets factory reset back to how he was in the first movie, and joined Lotso for a bit. I thought this worked pretty well and was a nice callback, but Spanish Buzz was goofy as hell. It's so random and wasn't that funny to me. He doesn't stay like that for long though. Toy Story 3 is another fantastic Pixar movie, and one that wraps up what I consider the golden years of Pixar. It's so impressive that this studio came out swinging and never stopped. I'm aware I've said I've liked some of these movies more than others, but all the movies I've watched so far have at least been good. Now for a controversial movie. Cars 2, the sequel to the racing movie, is a spy thriller with a massive conspiracy, starring Tow Mater. Huh? Pixar, what the fuck is this? Why would you take a series with talking cars and make them do undercover missions and karate? I get the feeling they chose this idea for a Cars sequel because it's something cars don't normally do, and that shows in the actual movie. Mater teams up with spies to uncover who really cares. It's just dumb. I don't have anything positive to say. Except the concept that the spy stuff is based around could have been an actually good sequel. The backdrop to this story is the World Grand Prix, where Lightning races against other racers from around the world as they travel from country to country. Why didn't we get this? Because that's a great way to expand the scope of the last movie. McQueen even has a rival in Francesco, who isn't a great character, but he could have been with enough screen time. And the other racers could have been the side characters, because honestly, the ones from the last movie are even less important here. No, let's have Mater flirting with the Hear Me Out car. Mater's annoyingness has been cranked up to 11, to give him an arc about locking in. It's not even charming or anything. I couldn't stand him in scenes. He doesn't work as a main character at all. They shafted McQueen, and we find out in a passing line that he's won 4 piston cups.
He did what in his cup?
I'm so mad we didn't get to see this, since this was the whole setup for the first movie. He gets a mini arc of letting Mater be his annoying self, but that's undermined by the fact that he should change. He's just being disrespectful at points. The two characters get in a fight because Mater was accidentally giving McQueen bad racing advice. But why was he listening to him? McQueen already said that he doesn't take Mater to races, so why would he listen to him in the first place? This movie is just so shit. It has a lot more problems, but I don't want to entertain the idea of this film. I'm just bewildered by how shit it is. This is my first time ever watching Brave, and safe to say, I wasn't missing out on much. It's not a bad movie really, but kind of underwhelming. It has some neat moments and characters. I like Merida's character, as she tries to break out of her role as the princess, because no one will listen to her. The main culprit is her mum, and she gets turned into a bear. There's the Pixar charm. Merida accidentally turns her mum into a bear, and they must undo it. They must apologize and all that junk. But the actual plot doesn't start until halfway through the movie, and the story is very small in scope, so nothing that nuts happens. There's a bear fight, I guess that's cool, but there isn't anything really to the plot. As you can tell, I have nothing much to say about this movie, but I don't hate it, I think. Since it's just regular people with hints of magical elements, I just can't really get engaged in it. Controversial opinion. I think Monsters University is leagues better than Monsters Inc. I made it pretty clear that while I didn't mind Monsters Inc., I didn't think it was a masterpiece by any means. I think it was just lacking some elements that could have made it better. And that's why I enjoy this movie a lot more, because I felt very fulfilled afterwards. The story actually follows Mike and Sully in their university years, before they even worked as scarers, making this Pixar's first and only prequel. This could have made the movie feel more predictable, but there is a lot happening here that you wouldn't expect, and doesn't contradict the first movie in any way. We get to see how Mike and Sully met, and they did not like each other very much. They had this fierce rivalry over who was the better scarer. While Sully seemed pretty naturally gifted at scaring, Mike knows all the theory side to it, putting them on an even playing field of sorts. Mike is given a lot of screen time and focus, and his character development is pulled off perfectly. Ever since Mike was a kid, he's been determined to be a scarer. He's made it all the way to college, using his knowledge, but comes to a roadblock that he can't help. He's just not physically that scary, which is the point the movie loves to drive home. Let's give Mike some credit, he's way scarier than most of the other characters. Mike tries desperately to prove everyone wrong, that he is scary, and seems to do so by winning his team the scare games. This victory is short-lived, as it's revealed that Sully tampered with the scaring machine, proving to Mike that even his closest friend doesn't think he's scary. This drives Mike to go to the human world and scare a real child. But this backfires, and they aren't scared of him at all. This breaks Mike, and he comes to terms with the fact that everyone was right. Then he helps Sully scare a bunch of adults, which is a big feat in this universe. This is such a great story for Mike, and demonstrates the idea that your dream might not pan out the way you expect, and you just have to adapt. There was never that moment at the end where Mike proves himself to everyone. Instead, there's a more realistic ending, and I love that. While Mike got a ton of focus, I wish Sully got the same amount. There's little character moments, like when he confesses that he's terrified of letting everyone down because of the legacy of his family. And we see how him and Randall became enemies, and Sully becoming good friends with Mike. These are cool and all, but nothing compared to Mike's journey. The whole underdog story of Uzma Kappa winning the scare games is also really fun to watch. Other unscary monsters join Mike and Sully, and these are all neat little characters to have. It's not like they're essential for the movie to work, but they help fill the cast out a bit more. It's really satisfying seeing them get better thanks to Mike's help, and eventually make it to the final game. The amount of hurdles these guys have to overcome is insane, and there's jokes that I found pretty funny.
Have fun, kids! I'll just be here listening to my tunes.
But the best part of the film is what happens after Mike goes to the human world. Mike and Sully's heart-to-heart is such a compelling scene, as the two characters get to shine. Then it leads to the cabin scene, where they have to scare those adults. The two build the fear really well, and it makes it believable that these people would be scared. It's such an awesome scene to cap an amazing movie. This is definitely one of the most underrated movies in Pixar's lineup, so if you haven't seen it yet, please go watch it. Inside Out is a weird movie when you step back and look at it. It's about the emotions of Riley who control her. The main emotion we follow is joy, as she tries to keep Riley happy. But when Riley moves to a new city, the more negative emotions are forced to take charge as Joy is thrown out of headquarters. It's a very novel concept, as everything relating to the human mind is seen as a job. Like there's a whole studio that makes the dreams Riley has when she sleeps. It's really creative stuff, and they get very clever with their ideas. The main kind of conflict for the movie is the thought of sadness. See, Joy wants to keep Riley happy all the time, and straight up shuns sadness. To be fair, she is pretty annoying. This isn't a good thing to do, and that's the whole point of this movie. Showing what the benefits of sadness are, and how it's important when going through tough times. For Riley, it's the thought of missing home and being sad about it that needs to be let out so she can move past it and make new, happier memories. Accepting these negative emotions is Joy's whole character arc, and is shown really well in scenes. This got really deep. The other emotions are kinda just here, but have enough screen time to make you like them at least a little bit. But the real best side character is Bing Bong. He is a legend, and put some respect on his name. The movie itself does bug me a little bit, because it tackles these really complicated topics, but at the same time, feels more catered to kids, more than any of the other movies. I get that these were all made for small children, but the other movies had really tight scripts which can be enjoyed by every demographic. This one feels too kidified, which also makes sense. This is inside the head of an 11-year-old girl. I guess I don't know what I'm talking about. Still a good movie, with a very deep message. The Good Dinosaur is a dumb, boring, stupid, boring, dumb movie. What do you mean I'm overreacting? In all seriousness, yeah, I don't really like this movie. It's about Arlo and this human dog thing trying to get home after getting lost, and along the way, Arlo has to learn how to be brave. Is this not the most generic plot for a kids movie out there? Having a cowardly character learn how to be brave by now feels like a lazy way to try and make you care for the character. And this movie fails at that. Arlo is so unlikable as a main character because of how annoying this guy is. I can't think of any redeeming qualities for Arlo, and he's downright selfish. When Spot finds another human, Arlo just takes him away because he wants Spot as a pet. Both of these characters have dead parents, and Arlo knows this. So trying to keep him away from others his species is insane. The movie itself is just straight up boring. It's just these two dicking around for the whole movie and getting high together. They meet other dinosaur characters who all honestly have some bland designs and personalities. Why do the T-Rexes run like that? I had forgotten about this movie, and then I watched it, and now I wish I could forget it again. Oh boy, a movie about my favorite character, Dory. In a shocking twist of fate, this movie is the anti-Cars 2, because they make Dory a lot more competent here, and I don't hate her as much. Yippee! When she started her forgetting shtick, she felt a lot more tragic, as you could see how much it was affecting her. And since we know of Dory's backstory now, it becomes a lot sadder to watch. Dory goes on a journey to find her parents, as she starts getting flashes of past memories. The gang winds up in an aquarium, which is such a good setting for a fish movie. There's a lot of fun moments that use the location well, a good amount of new, wacky characters, and new, more important characters that are a treat to have around. Hank is definitely the standout, as Dory helps him overcome his fear of the ocean. At least I think it's fear. Hank says he has unpleasant memories of the ocean, and would like to just chill in a tank. But then Dory's like, come to the ocean with me, and he's like, okay. Wish we saw what those bad memories could have been. But he works fine enough just how he is. He's got some very satisfying movement though. A very brain-tickling character. I wish I could say the same thing about Marlin, because he has a character arc of learning to trust others and let go of control. If that sounds familiar, yes, that was his character in the first movie. I get that old habits die hard, but there doesn't feel like there's any progression. He's still the same as he was before, and that's lame. Nemo doesn't get much to do, but he does act more as a voice going against Marlin's stubborn mindset, giving another character the benefit of the doubt. Nonetheless, this is another excellent looking movie from Pixar, so it has that going for it. Another good movie from the studio, but one that kind of lacks that message that really sticks with you. It's a heartwarming story and the ending is nice and wholesome, but still basic in a way. Dory set out to find her parents, and she did. Woohoo! And there will never be a sequel, because Ellen DeGeneres, Dory's voice actor, is apparently a horrible person. Womp womp. Cars 3 is the Cars 2 we should have gotten instead of Cars 2. Everything about this movie screams that it's a sequel to the first movie, and acts like Cars 2 never happened, which is hilarious. It pays tribute to Doc Hudson in so many ways, showing us flashbacks, some moments from the first movie reanimated, and new moments using lines that didn't make it into the first movie. And frankly, McQueen's whole character arc follows that of Doc's. So McQueen is now apparently considered old, and his career is threatened by the next generation rookies, who just outpace him. He goes out to get more training from Doc's mentor, and is joined by his assistant coach Cruz Ramirez. I really like Cruz as a character. She brings a lot of light to this frankly sad story, and has some good character work. McQueen inspired her to be a racer, but when she had a chance to pursue this career, her self-doubt got the best of her, and she became a trainer instead. This series is very much a sausage fest, so our main female character is a breath of fresh air. McQueen also gets a great character arc of accepting that he just can't compete with these younger racers, but finds new purpose in becoming a crew chief for Cruz. So the ending has McQueen having this realization in the midst of a race, and tags Cruz in. She then goes on to beat Jackson Storm, who is the Lightning McQueen of the newer races. It's a great ending that wraps up both character arcs nicely, and kind of came out of nowhere. Cruz has been with Lightning for the whole movie, joining in on all the training he undergoes, subtly foreshadowing that this will all come into play soon. It's definitely not obvious because you think McQueen would overcome the odds and win. But that's Pixar, baby! They take the more unconventional and more realistic path to their stories. Cruz uses a move we saw Doc do, which was a cool callback, and she joins Team Dinoco. McQueen also gets a makeover to Doc's colors, which was neat. I'm not saying their characters are perfect here, because there's one moment where McQueen gets unjustifiably mad at Cruz, but overall it's solid. There are a lot of standout scenes here, and most of them are the best in the series. The moment right before the climax of the film, where McQueen still can't even beat Cruz after days of training, is unexpected, and casts a shadow of dread over McQueen. Watching that whole race with Cruz winning in the end, seeing Doc in his prime, and my absolute favourite, the moment McQueen starts to realise he's not top shit anymore and crashes. This one scene is crafted to perfection. The look on McQueen's face when he realizes what situation he's in, to him desperately trying to stay in the race, then to his crash. We've never seen him in a state like this, and it goes to show how much he's changed. In the first movie, he avoided a crash like the plague. And to cap it all off, the music is super good and dramatic. Actually, all the music in this movie is awesome. And who made it? Of course, it's Randy Newman. He went from composing the music for most of the Golden Era movies to only a few in this one, but he can still deliver absolute peak. Another thing this movie gets right is how they use the Radiator Springs cast of characters. They aren't completely forgotten about, but they aren't also in the movie that much. They hit that perfect balance of use. If I had to complain about something, I think Jackson Storm should have had a bit more to him. He has the same level of depth as Chick Hicks, but at least Chick was funny to watch. Storm is just there. I believe this to be another underrated Pixar movie, because it brought us so many great scenes that eclipsed those in the first one. And I'm so glad Mater is back to normal. In these videos I make, there's always that one movie that I just can't talk about. I don't know why, I just can't speak much about these ones, and Coco is no different. I like this movie, there isn't anything wrong with it. Well, I think the script is a bit janky at times. The characters just state the obvious a lot of the time, and God forbid they don't say what's on their mind. You can make this movie into a devious drinking game if you take a shot every time someone says family. There's good themes of family, drink, and the importance of remembering those who have passed. But are they really dead when they live on through loved ones' memories? I like how they present the afterlife, and since this is a music-centered movie, of course the music is fantastic. I feel like Ernesto is an obvious twist villain, but I like how they lead you astray in believing that he's Miguel's ancestor. It's a good vibe, watch it, next movie. Incredibles 2 is the most unnecessary sequel out of all these movies. Except maybe Cars 2. Sure, we don't really need sequels for any of these movies, because they're all very standalone. But when we do, there's normally clever ideas of how to expand the world and the characters. Except Cars 2. I wasn't clamoring to see the Underminer be defeated, but it is fun to see these characters again. This movie has Bob and Helen practically swapping roles, as Elastigirl is out superheroing to advocate for the supers to become legal again, while Bob is stuck at home taking care of the children. Great idea to have Helen in the spotlight, because Bob had a lot in the first movie, and Helen's powers are way more interesting. She has to take down the Screenslaver, who is working to stop the superheroes from becoming legal again. And yes, they are a twist villain. So this rich guy, Winston Dever, is leading the charge to legalize supers. It's him, isn't it? Wrong, because he's genuinely a nice fella. It's his tech-savvy sister, so at least it wasn't too obvious. She's mad at supers because her dad and brother had too much faith in them. And when they didn't show up once, her mum died. Is she a good villain? Nah, she's kinda just whatever. The Bob babysitting arc was actually my favorite part of the movie. Every character is still intact here, and watching them all interact again is kind of nostalgic. All their powers benefit a lot from the modern animation, and Jack gets powers of his own, so wacky shenanigans ensue. This is where the problems come in. The first movie had some really intense and realistic themes that this one lacks. There were some filler scenes in the previous movies, in my opinion, but it still felt tight and well written, where here, there's a lot of downtime. Like I said, I had fun with what the rest of the family was doing, but the Elastigirl stuff felt pretty sidelined. There were some awesome action scenes, better than anything from the first movie in my opinion, but the story definitely suffered. At least we got to see a lot more supers instead of just the Parf family and Frozone. None of them are interesting, however. There's one that vomits, which is a choice. Considering that everything is pretty dulled down, this is still an entertaining movie. It doesn't live up to the standards of some of the better movies in the lineup, but it definitely isn't as bad as The Good Dinosaur.
It's me and you, boy.
I cried when this first came out. Yep, I was 15 years old. No one thought there would be more Toy Story movies because the third one ended so perfectly. But there are more concepts to explore apparently, so here we go. Toy Story 4 is all about the idea of toys not being played with. Woody finds himself being unloved the most by Bonnie, which is obviously upsetting to him. He finds himself without a purpose until Bonnie makes a new toy. Now this ponders the question, what counts as a toy? Because Forky is just junk. So how is he alive? Existential toy crisis aside, Woody must take care of Forky since he's now very important to Bonnie. I think Forky is a neat little character who has to learn what it means to be a toy. But this whole plotline is over in about 10 minutes. Instead, we see Woody and Bo Peep reunite and how they rescue Forky from Gabby, who is the villain. Her motivation is sound, wanting Woody's voice box to replace her damaged one, so she can be loved by this kid. Then she gets rejected when the time comes, and it's all very sad. But she doesn't have enough screen presence to make me care that much. The one thing I remember most about her is her goons, who are terrifying. She does get a happy ending, but I just don't really care. There are new side characters, who are all quirky and fun in their own right. But this leaves the old cast being very sidelined. I know it would have been hard to squeeze all these characters in, while introducing new ones. But it's a shame these fan favorites are wasted. And for some reason, Buzz is all of a sudden an idiot. He talks to his inner voice and does stuff that Buzz would never do. He was never like this before, so why'd they butcher him so much? Thankfully, Woody is still firing at all cylinders. His character is expanded upon and continues to develop, which is great. We see how he struggles with barely getting any attention from Bonnie, because we know how much he loves being there for his kid. He resorted to babysitting the new favorite toy just to do something to positively impact Bonnie. And while on his journey, he realizes that being a lost toy who gets played with by multiple kids is a better life than sitting in the closet. He leaves the gang at the end of the movie, which shocked me. And this decision was probably helped that he likes Bo. This was set up in the very first movie, so I'm glad it's getting paid off here. This is wonderful character work. Plus, this movie is so beautiful! Look at this! I've been saying that a lot lately, but this one is peak. If you want some Tom Critic lore, I actually made a review of this movie all the way back when it came out. So technically, that was the first review on this channel. This is a nice place to wrap up another era of Pixar. I'm dubbing the sequel era. There were still original movies here, but there was only 4, compared to the 6 sequels we got. It's pretty clear what the intentions were here. It's not a bad decision, because I love a lot of these franchises, and a lot of these movies were great, but some were bad. I think it's fitting to end another era. With a Toy Story movie, because a lot of the ones after this were very different, and they started coming out on Disney Plus, and it was a whole thing. Onward is a pretty interesting movie, concept-wise, but becomes a bit forgettable after viewing. I really like a lot of what this movie does, and the ending might be one of my favorites in Pixar history. The movie follows Ian and Barley, who go on a quest to find a gem to bring their dead father back to life. This world has a history of magic, but throughout the decades, magic has become replaced by technology and slowly forgotten about. That's where our main character comes in, as he's able to use magic to almost bring his dad back. He's just a pair of legs for the film, and I love this overall idea. The brothers have to complete the spell in 24 hours, otherwise they'll never get a chance to see their dad again. Such a wholesome story that gets paid off well. We learn that Barley regrets not saying goodbye to dad before he passed, and Ian never met him in the first place. So you get attached to the idea of these two reuniting with their father. But Ian never gets the chance to see him. He has to fend off this rock dragon, giving up his only chance to meet his dad to Barley. He can only watch from afar as the two talk, which makes this a beautiful moment. Obviously Ian is our main character, and only being able to watch from afar keeps the dad in this ambiguous state. And we view him just how Ian does. This keeps the dad as a mystical creature in a way, where we only see fragments of him, but he's overall a mystery. This is all great, but Ian has a realization before this. He has this list of all the stuff he wanted to do with his dad, and he eventually realizes that he's actually done all these things with his big brother Barley, which is a really cute moment. Both characters got decent arcs and decent payoffs. Sadly, I think that every character is undercooked, and not that interesting. There's a subplot with the boy's mum trying to find them, with help by a manticore, but this is boring compared to Ian learning magic. He learns different spells, and they all come back in this final fight against the dragon, and I think it's sick. The way the movie has this theme of creatures rediscovering who they truly are is a cool angle to play at, and shows how comfortable they've gotten in this easier world. This is such a guilty pleasure film for me, because I'm aware it's not as good as other Pixar movies, but I just vibe with the premise and characters a lot. Soul is all of a sudden the most beautifully written movie in Pixar's entire catalog. It follows Joe Gardner as he dies and goes on a meaningful journey discovering what living is really about. Does that not sound like it's going to be a great deep movie? The film explores concepts of living and dying, and both are done fantastically. Death comes out of nowhere and at the worst time possible, as shown with Joe. There are other concepts broken down here, like how personalities are formed in this world, and explains that phenomenon when you get in that zone during an activity. Such abstract concepts that have interesting elements to them. Speaking of abstract, the soul world we see feels so otherworldly and not too overdone. There's very pleasing visuals, and every character in this area has really simple but visually pleasing designs. Plus, it's funny that Joe's soul has a hat. Joe is a great character, and that he's actually not an interesting person. He's got a boring life, in a job he doesn't really care for, pursuing a dream that's going nowhere. You sympathize with the guy, as he desperately clings to jazz, because that's all he's ever known. It's not until he meets 22, and gets stuck in a cat's body. It makes sense in context. That he starts to realize that jazz isn't everything. 22 in a single day grows bonds with Joe's friends and family, because she isn't stuck in that rot that Joe is. 22 goes on a journey of her own, learning what it's like to live, as she appreciates it more, and Joe learns to appreciate what he already has, because it can be taken away in an instant. It's really hard for me to explain why this movie is so great. Trust me, it's something you have to watch to get. You can tell while watching that the people making it felt a very personal connection to the film, and that oozes out of every aspect. It's not only beautiful thematically, but visually too. There was so much care put into every character, and the movie is just downright funny. Even when Joe gets to his gig that he spent the whole movie stressing about. He does perform really well, but feels hollow afterwards. It's a great moment that makes him realize that 22 lived more in his body for a day than he ever has. It's peak, and my second favorite Pixar movie. Good luck topping that. Luca was surprisingly mid. I don't think it was all that special, but rather predictable. There are two sea monsters who lurk around exploring the surface world and have to hide their true selves from the hunting town. I wonder where this is going to go. The town eventually finds out about them, but through the bonds they made before, everyone accepts them. Oh, there's someone who suspects something might be up and tries to kill them. Sounds right. And there's a human helping them too. No way. What's funny is that there's a lot of similar ideas to The Little Mermaid. A sea creature has a fascination with the surface and finds themselves living among them. This isn't a bad thing, but comes off as very unoriginal. I'm trying not to sound like I hate this movie, because I don't. I think it's just a disappointment compared to the other movies. It has an emotional core, I think, but it's about Alberto and Luca fighting, and eventually the two going their separate ways in the end. I will say that Luca betraying Alberto is foul. The absolute worst part of this movie is the pacing. Oh my god, it feels like nothing is happening for half the runtime. The actual plot doesn't start until half an hour in. And to be fair, it does take its time setting up Luca's friendship with Alberto, but this just consists of the two fucking around. Even when the story starts rolling, I wasn't that engaged while watching. I did get pretty into the final race, but that was it. I remember hearing that this was a pretty good film, but I don't really see it. This movie's about a girl who turns into a giant red panda when she feels strong emotions. And it's also about K-pop somehow. Turning Red is a strong entry for Pixar, with themes of accepting every part of yourself, to speaking your mind, to the idea of not being a dick to your child. It's honestly impressive how much of a helicopter parent Ming is, actively going out of her way to embarrass May. Her character is done well, and that you can see why she acts like this, because of her own upbringing. But you can recognize that a lot of what she does is too far. Her relationship with May is clearly very complicated, as May desperately wants her mother's approval, while also doing things she wouldn't be happy with. May could have come off as very irritating and cringe, but thankfully she doesn't. Instead being really funny, and you can't help but feel bad for her when her mum does this. I really like the different style this movie goes for, but I noticed that this and Luca's character design make everyone look a little too cartoony. I get that these are, in fact, cartoons, but Pixar usually handles their art style and characters with a bit more detail. Like Soul, for instance, has cartoon characters, while also feeling grounded and realistic. I just miss the grittiness of the older movies like WALL-E, but I get it wouldn't work in a story like this. It did make this movie very fun to watch with all its bright colours. It's also really random that it's set in 2002. The emotional beats hit kind of hard, which you would expect with the whole idea revolving around an emotional panda, but they don't reach the highs of the old stuff. Oh man, I've really become an old man saying the stuff back in my day was so much better. Unfortunately, there is a very similar turning point where the main character throws their friend under the bus. We literally saw this in Luca, the last movie. But thankfully, it's done better here, considering how the characters are handled. Turning Red. Cool movie with entertaining characters. Great to watch while you're high, I'm sure. Here goes Tom being a contrarian again. But I don't think Lightyear was as bad as I heard. It's not great. It's not even that good. It's just basic in most of the things it does. If you haven't seen this movie, you're wondering what the hell this movie is. It is a spin-off of Toy Story, but there is more to it than that. They tell us at the very start that this film is a film in the Toy Story universe that Andy has seen. The Toy Buzz is based off this movie character in the universe, which is interesting. This allows the movie to make references to stuff Toy Buzz says and did, without it feeling too meta. The references themselves range from obvious to cute and missable if you don't remember the movies that well. They are all to show where Toy Buzz got his strange personality from in the first Toy Story movie. But there are some new sides to Buzz that we learn of, and they in fact lead to some predictable character arcs. Buzz doesn't like working with rookies, and we know this because he flat out tells us he prefers to work alone. I wonder where this is going. In a shocking and mind-blowing fashion that no one saw coming, the side characters that Buzz travels with are all rookies and downright useless. And you know what? I don't blame Buzz for being so over these people. The whole movie has these characters making dumb and irredeemable mistakes. And the movie really tries to send the message that everyone makes mistakes. But are we meant to just forgive them? There is a moment where one of the side characters ejects the ship's fuel, leading to that fuel and Buzz being taken by the villain. That character, whom is nameless in my head, feels sad, as you should be. But the other characters say, "Oh, don't worry, it was just a mistake." As far as they know, Buzz is dead. But no sweat, it was a mistake, so it's fine. The characters are just here to be annoying and make Buzz learn to work with others, which is such a generic character arc to have. I do think it's interesting to see how Buzz tries desperately to fix stranding a bunch of people on this alien planet by missing decades of his life. I wish we saw more of how his guilt was affecting him, because on the surface, he just seems a little embarrassed by it. The plot of this movie revolves around Buzz trying to get the people of this planet back home, since he got them stuck there. He does this by trying to find a hyperdrive fuel, but every time he tests one, he travels ahead a couple of years. This eventually leads to him successfully finding one that sent him another 22 years ahead. This is all important when I explain who the villain is. It's Zurg, who is an older Buzz. He's from a different timeline where Buzz made it back after finding that hyperdrive fuel, but was almost arrested, so created a time machine to go back to this moment. Then caused the past to change, so this never happened to our Buzz. Are you following? No? Too bad. Old Buzz wants to use this time's fuel crystal to go back in time again, to make sure he never stranded everyone on this planet. I don't mind the angle they play this at, because it shows how much Buzz would do anything to fix his mistake. But this character all falls apart when he starts being a boring villain. Kill anyone to achieve his goal, and not caring about anything else. That would be fine if we saw him more, because he could have been threatening. And the idea of him being an older Buzz is okay, and is also kind of predictable. There's also this small side plot of one of Zurg's robots tracking down the group, and this goes literally nowhere. What was the point? Enough bitching! Here are some things I like, I swear. I think this movie's art style nails how I like the look of Pixar movies. It's not too cartoony, but also isn't too realistic. And that happy medium is where this one lies. I much prefer this style over Turning Red any day. There's also... maybe there isn't anything else. Oh wait! I like Chris Evans' performance as Buzz. He does a great job. Funny how he plays another man out of time. There's also the fact that this movie's comedy doesn't work at all. Wait, that's not a positive. Yeah, there are a lot of moments that just don't land. Lightyear doesn't stand out in any way. It's another basic ass movie that at least has some cool visuals. It's the same way I feel about Brave, where it isn't a shit movie, but a very forgettable one. Oh yeah, there's also 3 post-credit scenes, which is wild. I'm pretty mixed on Elemental, because on one hand, it's a pretty decent Romeo and Juliet-esque love story. But on the other, there are so many extra plot lines that make the movie feel really messy. The main plot of the film is the developing romance between Ember and Wade. But whoa, one's fire and one's water, and those two don't mix. There are cute little moments that work well in showing how much these two like each other, except for how the two start warming up to each other. This starts in another plot, where Ember has to stop her father's shop from getting put out of business, because Wade submitted some violations due to faulty piping. The two must work together to figure out where all this water is coming from. What's funny is that the story is wrapped up pretty quick, as they find the source of the water and fix it before the 40-minute mark. And during all this, the two bond. This is a good way to bring the two together, but Ember's turn is so quick it feels unnatural. She doesn't seem to be able to stand Wade at the start, but sees him start a wave at a game and now is interested. It can't be that easy. While all this is going on, Ember is preparing to take over her dad's shop. But then halfway through the movie, it's revealed that she doesn't actually want to take over, even though we had no inkling of this beforehand. She doesn't want to disappoint her dad because that shop was everything to him. And Ember seemed very on board with this idea. Maybe she could have expressed how she didn't want to take over, but had so much respect for her father that she did anyway. But found a new passion while seeing Wade. I just think they could have tied it all together better. I do think there should have been more time dedicated to Ember and Wade. And we could have gotten that if the opening scene was cut out. It shows how Ember's parents moved to Element City and setting up the shop to really show how much it means to their family. But it's not like we only get this information here, because the whole movie is telling us the same message. Actually, now that I think about it, a lot of the movie's messages are told and not shown. I think the actual idea of all these elements living together is done great, with us getting to see a lot of what the other elements can do and how they live. The fire characters are super satisfying to watch, and I love how their color changes depending on their mood. Like I said before, the characters are executed to be very likable, and it is sweet seeing the romance moments between the main characters. Wade is the second most down bad character in Pixar history, sacrificing himself to save Ember. He is alive and well, but that act is noteworthy. Wally is still the biggest simp. The last movie in this video is Inside Out 2, a sequel to a movie I didn't care about. Thankfully, I really enjoyed this one, since there were a lot more mature themes and ideas explored. We follow Riley and the emotions as they hit puberty and obtain 4 more emotions: envy, embarrassment, ennui, and anxiety. That last one is special because she's pretty much the villain of the movie, kicking all the original emotions out of headquarters and molding Riley into something she's not. Everything I just said works really well as an evolution to the first movie. Having another emotion be the villain is genius, and having it being probably the worst one is awesome. Anxiety makes this movie so damn stressful, as we are forced to watch Riley speedrun every embarrassing and awkward moment a teenager can have. All of these moments are shown brilliantly, and that final moment making Riley have an anxiety attack was tough. I can't help but think that this movie was made for teenagers that are probably going through the same thing. Because how the hell would little babies understand what's going on here? Since anxiety is framed as a bad emotion, I was expecting Joy's character to regress a bit, and she'll have to learn that all emotions are important. I was wrong, because she is open to this idea. But before she can actually understand these emotions, she's kicked out. Her interactions with sadness and the older emotions keeps up the development she got in the first movie, as she's more trusting and puts more faith in the others. This shows when Joy gives Sadness the important job of spying on headquarters. I haven't actually said what the plot is yet, other than anxiety takes over. Joy and the others have to go get Riley's sense of self, and take it back to headquarters before it's too late. This allows the characters to venture back through Riley's mind, but it's all changed around as Riley creates a new sense of self. It all connects back greatly. I'm having fun. I wish we could have had more depth to the other new emotions, as they mostly just serve anxiety, but there are so many things going on, I can't fault the movie. They are all at least relevant. Good job, Pixar, you finally made another sequel that tops the original. This movie is great, and a refreshing change from the only goodish movies. Alright, I can rank them now. The Good Dinosaur, Cars 2, Brave, Lightyear, Luca, A Bug's Life, Ratatouille, Elemental, Incredibles 2, Monsters Inc., Finding Dory, Inside Out, Toy Story 4, Coco, Onward, Turning Red, Cars 3, Inside Out 2, The Incredibles, Cars, Finding Nemo, Toy Story 3, Toy Story, Up, Monsters University, Toy Story 2, Soul, Wall-E. I still love Pixar. I love it more than when I started this video. Somehow these old ass movies still manage to bring those raw emotions out of me, and that's what cinema is all about. While I probably knocked some of these movies a little too hard, I still think the majority of these are at worst okay movies. The only bad ones are Cars 2 and The Good Dinosaur. There's a lot more to these films when you rewatch them, like there being 4 main Easter eggs to look out for. John Ratzenberger has a voice role in I think every movie, playing characters as big as Ham.
Pardon me, I hate to break up the staff meeting, but they're here!
To little cameos as background characters.
Just to let you know, my boss will be happy to take this whole place off your hands.
The next one is the Pizza Planet truck from Toy Story, appearing in every movie, except The Incredibles for some reason. Another is the Digits A113. And the last one is a sneaky reference to the next movie in the lineup. For example, Lotso can be seen in Up, when he doesn't even appear until the next movie. This adds to the Pixar charm, and there's a theory that all these movies are set in the same universe, just on a very long timeline. Go do some research for yourself. I hate, but also love making these long ass videos, because I always forget how long they take.